My name's Jeff St Laurent. This is the live Selling Coaching Tuesday call. As always, here every week, and ready to rock with a good crew on there. Had a little bit of time before we got the recording going to get a feel for who's on the call and what some people are looking for. So today's topic is understanding the fundamentals of selling to get paid. Get paid coaching clients, or basically sell anything that we're offering. Typically when we start off, it's that one-on-one coaching. So before we get rolling into that and we dive into some awesome education for you all today, of course these calls are always recorded. I post them all in my university on my website, sellingcoaching.com. Go ahead, check that out right over to the university. That's my hub for educating you. So a lot of fantastic information in there, if I can say that, and great resources for you. I help coaches transition to a full-time business. It's what I do. And so I also have another great resource on my website at the very top of every page, sellingcoaching.com. You'll see a little banner that says, check out my private Facebook group. And if you click over there, if you want to check that out, and if you wanted to join, that's a great another form of interacting. I use that vehicle of the Facebook group not only to communicate with my audience as well, but also it's a great vehicle. I do a lot with video. It's a great vehicle for you to start practicing and sharing your message. Not that you're marketing to coaches per se, but just speaking it to real life people, and that's the important part. So great stuff going on, always in the private Facebook group. You can check that out, like I said, through the top banner on my website. And then also right on my website on that landing page there, sellingcoaching.com, I've got a great resource for you. It's the ultimate startup guide for new coaches. You can see there, I basically say, hey, I'll give you my dog if you enter me your name and email address. A little bit of my humor, but it's actually for my ultimate startup guide. So that's a fantastic resource. If you haven't checked that out, definitely do that. And that will also put you on my email community, so you can start to not only understand, see what I do in terms of my calls and things like that, but more importantly, start to see and observe how I use my email marketing to stay in touch and communicate with my audience. So there's a value there of getting on my email community, because a lot of the coaches I work with, and all of you here at some point, if you haven't already, you've got to create an email list, right? I mean, that's the hub of your business. That is your business. That's your community, and that's how you communicate with your community. So I want you to be able to see a model of how I do that. So with that being said, let's get rolling on this topic of the fundamentals of selling. So there's a lot of different directions I can go with this, and those of you that have been students of mine, listen to other calls, there's a thread that you're going to start to hear over and over again. And any thread that's a repetitious thread, I want you to start making note of those repetitious threads, because at the end of the day, this business does not have to be that hard. I talk to a lot of people that they tend to struggle at this piece of selling, and I bring up selling because I struggled with that as well when I started my coaching business, back in 2004. And it was always the point where I was obviously passionate about what I was doing. I loved what I was doing. I believed in coaching, but there was a gap in terms of any interactions I was having with people, and then getting them through the process that I didn't really have of, like, maybe doing a complimentary session or discovery call, whatever you call it, and then actually having them hire me as a client. I mean, it doesn't mean like I never got clients. It just meant that it was just hard. It just felt like, oh. And it felt like when I actually got a client, it was like, oh my God, I got a client. Like it was this magnificent, like rolling snake eyes or something like that. It's like, whoa, it's statistically impossible, but I got it somehow. But then I started understanding through the mentor I was working with, the value of the art and the skill set of selling. And as I understood that, I realized, I'm like, wow, this actually it's easy and it's actually fun. And that's why I want to, pass this on to you and pass this information on so you can begin to work on that craft. And when we start off with selling is the typical thing that we hear all the time around selling is, there's this misconception, if you will, or there's a perception around it. How about that? There's a perception around it. And how about this? It's not a misconception. It's just a perception that, we've had before in some instances. It's selling where it's pushy, it's uncomfortable, it's awkward, it's getting people to do what they don't want to do. We've all had those experiences, the quote used car salesman. And a lot of coaches, their resistance around selling is, they don't want to push anything on anybody that they don't want. They don't want to be pushy. They don't want to be intrusive. They don't want to be seen as that person. And so I want to just break this down very simply so you can start to understand not necessarily how to not be that way, but I'll also say, how to not be that way, because there's a natural tendency, there's a conflict, if you will, between I'm super excited about what I'm doing as a coach and I know I can help people. And so then the natural tendency is when we start interacting with someone, or if someone even asks us about, hey, what do you do? Or tell me more about your coaching, we just get over the top excited about it. And inadvertently, we can become that person that we don't want to be, that pushy person, et cetera, because we're like, oh yeah, you should try it, or like, oh my God, I'd love to help you. And like, well, how would you want to have a complimentary session? We can set it up and we can, we start going down that avenue, and we kept throwing up on them all this passion, and let's get them going on this stuff. And what happens is we start to become that person that we don't really want to be. And so there's that natural tendency to go down that path. But yet at the same time, we don't want to be like that. So how do we work that? And so it's starting to understand, if I think about the fundamentals of selling, selling is an effortless process when someone is in a position where they're interested and they want something, and you have something that person is interested and wants. And when you find a situation like that, assuming there's some great communication around that, and there's some dialogue back and forth, and each step forward from there is communicated and agreed upon, it really should be an effortless, easy, and fun process. And I want to break this down today so it almost feels like stupid. Like, oh my God, like, duh, yeah, like I know this stuff. Like, nothing I'm going to say today you don't know. Right? It's not like this, oh my God, this is going to blow your mind. It's very simple. Yet it's remembering it and understanding it. It's taking a deep breath to just understand this and keep this on top of mind, and resisting the urge you have to just, oh yes, let's do this. Let's do a complimentary session, or let's coach, or push your agenda, if you will, on somebody else when there's somewhat any amount of interest, without, if you will, qualifying maybe what that interest is. And those of you that are students of mine hear me talk about qualifying. Like, qualifying is the answer to everything. And what does qualifying mean? Qualifying just means that I'm qualifying someone's interest. I'll say differently, I'm just understanding someone's level of interest. I did a call last week on how to help people decide on hiring you as a coach. And a big piece of that was just understanding where someone is through every single part of the process. And the only way we can understand where someone is through every part of this process, meaning if they're on this path to hiring us or not, is by just honestly putting our agenda aside and understanding where they're at along the way by asking questions and listening and asking. And isn't that what we do as coaches anyways? And that's the thing I love about selling, and I bring to us as coaches especially, is that, you know what, if you're working on being a great coach, to me, being a great coach is being objective, detached from their agenda. Being detached from your agenda and honoring what theirs is, and then asking great questions and just openly listening to deeper than just the words, but what do they mean behind those? And that's exactly what selling is like I say, go back to that qualifying their interest, understanding their interest. So whether they're coming to you, asking you something along the lines of, let's say you did a speaking engagement, or just there's a networking event, and they find out you're a coach, et cetera, and they say, well, tell me more about your coaching, or how much do you charge for your coaching, or what do you help people with? So it's, instead of jumping on and going off on this passionate tangent, et cetera, and inviting them to a complimentary session, et cetera, it's just kind of qualifying and understanding, like, yeah, I'd love to talk to you more about that. Tell me, what it is that you're looking for. Tell me what it is that you're looking to understand. Or, I have a seminar and coaching company, and I help people, I help coaches transition to a full-time business. And then throwing it back to them and starting to understand what they're looking for. Remember what I said, rewinding just a second. The sales process is effortless and easy when someone's interested and wants something and you have what that person is interested and wants, right? So now let's break it down to two main things when it comes to selling. And those students of mine, I know right now you should know exactly what I'm going to say. Need and timing. That's it, need and timing. It's all about us understanding someone's need and the timing of that need. This is the foundation of everything in life. It's a foundation of everything in life. It's whether we take action on something. Action meaning we do something, we buy something, we go somewhere, we go to the fridge, yeah, we call up somebody. It's everything based on need and timing. It's the ultimate, if you will, foundation, or if you will, fundamental of whether us as humans take action or not, or do something or not. On behavior, how about that? I'll even go so far as human behavior, need and timing. And therefore, it's actually exactly what selling is all about, is that need and timing. So let's look at the need portion of it. And the need portion of it is, I have a need. I want something. So I'm thirsty. Like right now, I'm actually a little thirsty. Like literally, I'm a little thirsty. But the timing of it right now isn't great because I'm on a call. I actually have some water right now, but I've got to find a spot where I've got to do this. And I'm just picking some random thing that's popping into my head right now. Need and timing, right? But then my need for having water right now isn't that big, right? I need it. And the reason I'm saying this now is because no matter what the need, and I pick something stupid like, okay, I'm thirsty, or I need to get a divorce, or I hate my job, I need to get out of it, or I need to make more money, or you fill in the blank, I need a new car. Everyone has a need for something in their life. Most everyone wants to get a little bit healthier at least, maybe drop a little weight. Most everyone wants to maybe earn a little bit more money or have a little bit closer or better relationship, right? I mean, it's all different levels, but so everyone has a need for something. But what we're finding out with this first part of the need is how seriously, hardcore badly does someone want to do this? And this is, when we think about this, and this is how we get paid, is we need to start to understand this part. It's not just, I'm thirsty. It's like, well, how thirsty are you, right? And this is where those questions come in. It's understanding that people typically don't take action until their need is really big. Said differently, until it's bad enough, till they've hit bottom, not even the first time, but maybe the second, fourth, or fifth time, right? They hit bottom and they bounce back, and then a few days go by and it gets a little better, things kind of level off and it's not so bad. And therefore they just go back on autopilot. Things are status quo, right? So what I've learned is that, most people aren't proactive. That's a very small percent of the population is, oh yeah, this is not good. I can see this is going to get worse. Well, you know what? I'm going to be proactive and take care of this right now. Most people aren't like that. So I'm not saying that like, oh, we've got to find people at the bottom of the barrel, that are just drowning, etc. However, just know that that's typically where people buy from. When they get sick and tired, when they've had enough, when things are bad enough and they couldn't get any worse, that's when they get frustrated to the point of like, I've got to do something about this. And so what happens is that what that then brings up is now I've got a really big need in front of me. And now the bigger part of it is I want to do something about it. And this brings in that second element that's the timing. See, so the need and timing, they kind of go hand in hand. But I'll say it like this. If there's a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being, let's say, the worst it could get, or the bottom of the barrel, and 1 being like, yeah, things are actually not that bad. I just might need a little change, right? The timing comes in as you get closer to 10, meaning when they take action. So if someone has a need, they might be on that scale of that need scale, let's say 7 or below, right? Meaning, yeah, they've got a need and they want something. But obviously, as you get closer to 1, less relevant for them. It's less like, oh, I've got to do something about it. All right, but as you get closer to that 10, especially once you're at that 8, 9, 10 mark, now all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm hovering on frustration and anger and just like sick and tired, and I need to do something about this. I have to do something about this. And what happens is that's when the timing starts to be right. That's when people start looking, whether they know where to go or not, it doesn't matter. That's when they start potentially talking to people. They start Googling something. They start going to a counselor maybe, or buying a book at Amazon. So they're starting to look into something, or they're more motivated to start to figure things out. That's the timing. The timing starts to become closer to now. What we're looking for is understanding that need, and if you will, where it is on that scale of 1 to 10. And you can even ask that same question if you want to make it easy. But now more importantly is, well, why now? It has to be now. That's the timing piece. Someone has to be ready to do something about that need right now, today, tomorrow, yesterday, not last week or a week from now. That doesn't work. It's right now. When someone's at the right now part, so I'm an 8, 9, or a 10 on that scale of need, and it's like, I'm doing something about this. I might not know what to do, but as soon as I find out what to do, I'm going to do it. That's where we got to find out where they're at. That's if we're talking about the fundamentals of selling. And I said earlier, the process becomes easy when someone really wants something and they want to do something about it right now. And then we have something that they want. And then we can facilitate that right now. Need and timing, right? So now we're on that scale. Now that timing's right. So in any conversation, so I'm not going to get specific necessarily on like, oh, all these different situations, etc. Of how people come to you, whether it's a lead or a referral or a networking event or a Facebook ad or whatever it is. But no matter how you start interacting with somebody, no matter what mode of communication, whether it's face-to-face or a virtual email, text, social media platform, messaging, etc., doesn't matter. We're beginning this process of starting to understand where this person is in their world. What is it, if anything, that they're challenged with or that they're going after? That's that need. And then we start to understand basically, if you will, on that scale of 1 to 10, where are they at in terms of how big that need is? And then basically, why now? Why do they want to do something about that right now? And now here's the point. If we get to that spot and we really start to understand that, this is the part where it now becomes our duty, if you will. I'll say it like that. It becomes our duty as a coach who, at this point, hopefully, if we can see that we could help them with this need that they have, as a coach, for instance, right? It's our duty to be able to ask them if that might be something they'd be interested in. And that could sound differently based upon maybe the situation that you're talking to with this person and how they came to you, et cetera, or how much they know about you. What I mean by that is for instance, maybe you just met someone at a networking event and you're just having a random conversation. Heck, maybe you're with your kids at the playground and you just happen to talk to one of the other parents and the conversation goes on, and next thing you know, this person's, they're struggling in their career and you're a career coach, if you will, and they really want to get out of it, and they're 10 out of 10 on that need, and the timing is right now, and you're like, oh my God, this is what Jeff said, right? So in that situation, they don't know you through the hole in the wall, right? They don't know that you're necessarily a coach, maybe other than you brought it up at some point, et cetera, but they don't really even know what that coaching is. So in that type of situation where they don't really know you much, if at all, and or mostly what you do and what you help with, it's still your duty to ask if they might consider working with you or hiring you at something like that, but it's not as, it just sounds differently, and I'll play that out so you can start to hear what that sounds like. So that might be in that situation is when I hear that, I always recommend clarifying to go over with them, like to just reassure, like, this is what I'm hearing. And that's an important piece is, so correct me if I'm wrong, what I'm hearing is that you really are just done with your career. Right? You are just so sick and tired, like you would leave your job yesterday if you could. And they're like, oh my God, absolutely. And you're looking to do something now, but you just don't know what to do. Like you want to find a different path. You might want to start your own business, you said, et cetera, but you just don't know a path to go down. And they're like, yeah, that's absolutely right. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like now is the right, like you want to do something about that right now, or you're actively starting to look into something right now. And they're like, yes. So now you've clarified that. At this point, where you can go is, and you make a conversation is number one, you can start to ask, if you don't know already, well, what are you doing about that? Like, so what I'm curious right now, like, what are you proactively starting to do or look into? Have you spoken with anybody yet? What does that look like? So I want to find out, like, well, how proactively is this person starting to do something? And I use that word proactive, even though they're not necessarily being proactive, because it sounds like their need's really big. But either way, it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing to figure this out? And hear that, because who knows? Maybe they are talking to somebody. Maybe they have somebody that they're working with. Maybe they have a plan. So even though they're frustrated, and you ask them that, it's like, oh yeah, no, you know what? I got my resume out there. I'm going to this. I've got interviews coming up. So yeah, maybe they're well on their way. So this is what we want to find out, because if they already got a plan, if they already have some type of solution in play, then their need for us might not be there. See where I'm going there? Now I'm starting to show you that there's that need for what they're going for. And this example, for instance, is this guy's career, or this woman's career change, right, that you're talking to, right? But we've got to find out, like, well, we're a solution, meaning we could potentially help them figure that out and gain clarity on it and move forward, right? So we got to figure out now, it sounds like need and timing's big. We got to find out, well, are they doing something about it? Do they have a plan on that? Or is that why they're so frustrated, because they want this and they don't have a plan? Because that's most likely the case. So who cares? What are you doing about this? What are you looking into? You know, things like that, and find out. And at that point, if they're not doing anything, you can say, well, I'm just wondering, you know, I can't help but, as I listen to you and see what you're going through, I can't help but ask, you know, like, I actually am a career coach, or I work with people like yourself as a coach, and I help them gain the clarity that they need to, you know, get themselves out there and you know, get into a new career, or find a new career path, or start entrepreneurship, etc. I'm curious, would you be open to having a conversation about how I might be able to help you with that? That's what it sounds like. It's just a very genuine, like, well, I can't help but ask, but based on what I'm hearing you say, you know, of going after this, is like, I'm a coach, and I work with people just like yourself, and I help them facilitate this, gain the clarity, blah, blah, blah. And I was just wondering, you know, would you be open, if we exchange information, maybe create another conversation outside of this, maybe see how I might be able to help you? I'm curious what level of interest you might have in talking a little bit more about that. Or I'm curious what level of interest you might have, or I'd be curious if you'd be open to creating a further conversation around how I might be able to assist you. You know, does that genuinely interest you at all or not? And they might say, well, yeah, tell me a little bit more about what you do. And then you can start coaching them a little bit, depending on the time. You say, well, I'll tell you. Right now, tell me a little bit more about what you're looking for. And you coach them a little bit if there's the time there, right? And you can say, as you start coaching them a little bit, you can start to get to the point. It's like, we'll see how we just started to talk about this. And you kind of like highlight what you just went over. So now what you're doing is you've established that need and that timing. And now you're, like I said, it's that duty, but we're broaching the conversation of just saying, hey, this is what I do. And based on what I'm hearing you say, I can't help but ask, you know, would you be open to have a further conversation? Or would you be willing to look in a little bit closer of how I might be able to assist you with this as your coach? You know, and if the timing's not right to go into a, more of a conversation there, just like, well, listen, would you be, how about if we exchange contact information, if I followed up with you, would that be of genuine interest to you? And we can go from there. And I'm always at the point here at this point, I want to read people. I want to listen to people. And this is a very important element of selling. As I said earlier, it's asking questions and genuinely listening, which is you do as a coach anyways. But we can't let our ambition and our excitement of, oh my God, I could have a potential client here, overshadow us actually listening to what's really being said, not just words, but more emotionally from this person. I always like to get to this part is making sure that this person's genuinely interested, because what I know is is that people are afraid to say no. People are afraid to say, you know what? I appreciate you offering, but you know what? I'm all set right now. They're just afraid to say that. Doesn't mean people won't say that. However, most people are afraid to say that. And then they'll just go through the courteous, pretending steps of exchanging information. And then you may or may not even follow up with them. Or maybe they say, yeah, I'll follow up with you. And they never do, or they never will. And then it just goes on from there. And you're wondering, what the heck happened? Or you're still holding on to something that never really was. So in that situation, if they say, would you be genuinely open to talking a little bit further about this? If we exchanged information, if I followed up with you, is that something you're interested in? And if they say, yeah, sure, absolutely, just get a feel for where they're at. And I always like to give people an out and say, hey, listen, you know what? I just want to make sure, that this is something that you would be seriously open to talking about a little bit more, even though you know nothing about it. It's okay if you say no. I want to give that person a no, give them an out. Be like, I'm not just trying to get you to hire me, and this is stuff I would say. I'm not just trying to get you to hire me or do anything with me. It's just I heard that you really want this, and knowing what I know and what I do with my clients is I know I could assist you with this, but if you're not open to it, that's okay with me. But I couldn't help but ask. You see, this is just a genuine, open, just bearing all, just really tell me where you're at. And at that point, I've never been in a situation, I've done this many, hundreds of times over the course of the years. I've never been in a situation where I haven't elicited an honest response from that. I mean, if they're really not interested, I've gotten, well, you know what? Honestly, I would be interested in learning a little bit more right now, and then they go into whatever they go into, and I go, you know what? Thank you so much. I wish you the best with what you're doing. And either we just talk about something else or we go our separate ways. But if they are interested at that point, then it's great. So I get their information. I'll tell you what, what's the best way to follow up with you? Email, phone, whatever they give you. Great. Listen, I'll follow up with you when we get home, and we can further this conversation, and we can go from there. Now, how's that sound? And they're like, great. And I'll follow up from there. But that's a situation where you don't really know someone, et cetera, and how to transition into asking that. That's a fundamental of that transition. All right. So now let's rewind and let's talk about the other avenue of, okay, now I'm talking to, or I'm interacting with someone who knows me more. And this could be, let's say that they've come to a call like this, right? They've attended one of your events. They saw you live. So it doesn't mean if they know you from an hour ago. Like some of you were on this Tuesday call, and it might be the first time here. It might be literally the first time you just randomly saw this live Tuesday call on Facebook, and you're like, oh, who's this guy? Or like, oh, this topic sounds good, and you called in, right? Or they showed up at your event and they had no clue who you were, but they heard you for the hour, for the 30 minutes, etc. Either way, that's someone now who understands you more, who knows more about you, right? The value is much higher than a perfect stranger, let's say, that you meet at the park while you're playing with your kids or watching your kids having a conversation, right? Someone who's been on your email list, someone who's attended several of your events, someone like for me who's been on a handful of these calls or been in my Facebook group for a while, right? Those people, whether it's just one time or many times, there's a lot more value for what you do, and there's a lot more understanding of what you do and how you can help them because they're in your circle. So you see the difference between these two approaches in terms of, obviously there's a spectrum in between. That's where you just got to learn your judgment in between, but I'm just going the extreme end so you can start to see it. So now however the conversation starts, and again, going down the same path, qualifying that need on that scale of 1 to 10, and then as we realize, oh wow, they might be 8, 9, or 10, etc., understanding, well, why now? It seems like you've been wanting this for a while. What's different about today than last week or last year, for example? And in the timing is now. Now the approach is a lot more direct and simple in the sense because they know more of what you do, and they probably already know that you do coaching, and they know a little bit more about it because you've mentioned it a few times, or even that one time through the event or the call that you're doing, etc. And that's where the approach can be basically the same thing. Is I would still clarify exactly like I did with the other person. Well, it sounds to me as if you're looking to transition to a full-time coaching business, and you really, really want this badly, and like absolutely. And it sounds like, as much as you've tried things here and there, now's the right time for you. Like this is the time for you to really hammer this and start focusing on this. Absolutely. And that's where the transition is simple. Like, well, with that being said, I can't help but ask, would you consider hiring me as your mentor coach, or would you consider hiring me as your coach, whatever situation that you're going to be in? And the reason I ask is because I can clearly see you want to go after what you're going after, and you want to do it right now. And understanding that and knowing I can assist you, I wanted to ask and see if you were open to creating a conversation about that. That's the approach. It's just very simple like that. I'm just wondering if you'd consider hiring me as your coach. I wonder if that's ever crossed your mind. I wonder if you'd be open to that. And then you can get it. And then from there, just like in the other situation, I still like to give them an out, whether this is in face-to-face or virtual communication. I like to say, but with that being said, I don't know if that's an interest of yours. With that being said, I don't know if that's something that you would consider or not. I wanted to ask because I know it's something I can assist you. I'm okay either way. I'm okay with whatever you decide or wherever your interest is. I just would love to hear open and honestly kind of what your thoughts are. And I just throw it back to that person and see where they go. And when I take that approach with people, again, same thing. I've never, ever, and I do these 5, 6, 7 times a week with people, if not more, depending on the week, on the phone, messenger and email and things like that. And I'm not just doing them to do them. I'm creating conversations, and where it's appropriate and applicable, I just create that approach. And never, ever elicited a response where someone was angry or didn't work or they were turned off or they just disappeared. It's like they get back to me and they tell me, well, I've considered it, or they start elaborating more. And now what happens is, this is the important piece of selling, is now you're broaching the conversation. And this is still qualifying, meaning understanding where they're at. Remember I said earlier in the call, where they're at in this process. In this process, it's at first part of the process, it's them wanting to achieve what they want to achieve, right? That's that need and the timing part, right? That's the first part of the process we're trying to understand. Once we understand that, yes, there are, 7, 8, 9, or 10 on that scale of need, and then the timing is right, now what happens is we start to bring in this other process that we need to start to understand. And that's once we make this transition, meaning our duty of asking them if they'd consider working with us or consider looking into a little bit more about how you could assist them as their coach. Now what this does is this opens up this other process of understanding, is why they might consider that option, why they might consider working with someone like you. And it all depends on, how much or little they know about what you do or how you can help them. And let's assume, for the most part, as a coach for you, that it's closer to the little side, right? Like me as a mentor coach, like people that are in my arena, et cetera, on my calls, in my group, on my email community, et cetera, it starts to become very obvious of how I can help them the more they're there, because the education I put out and in my mentoring, right? So it's more of a package like that. So they still need to understand it for themselves, but there's also a certain level of understanding. But as a coach, for example, just if more of a general life coach, career coach, relationship, et cetera, there's, let's just say, a lesser understanding of exactly, well, what the heck do you really do? How could you really help me, et cetera? Even if they heard you at an event, et cetera. And I've done a lot of events. I used to do a lot of live events, and I would get a lot of clients from those events. But what I found is people, they knew they liked me, they liked my energy, they saw that I could help them in some ways, but they still need to understand a little bit more about what that would actually look like and how I could actually help them. And that is where, once I found out they were genuinely interested in potentially working with me, that's where the complimentary session came into play, where they would help facilitate, that information and start to understand, if you will, that value. And so from this perspective here is now we're going in that first process. We understand need and timing. Once we now make the transition to ask if they'd consider working with us, hiring us, or learning a little bit more about that, now we've got to start to understand, where they are in that process, and where they might find value in having someone like yourself. And what that leads up to is if that's a serious consideration of theirs. And again, this doesn't have to take a long time. This can happen over, a couple, 2, 3, handful of emails. It could happen in a 10, 15-minute conversation or shorter. It depends on the relationship and where it goes and how quickly it is. But at the end of the day, so I'm not showing this doesn't have to take months, et cetera, or even hours for that matter. But where I'm coming from here is I want to make sure that before I give out a complimentary session with somebody, that they're in the place where I not only now understand that what they're going after they want really badly, that's that need, and according to them and what I can see based on their situation, the timing couldn't be better. And one thing you want to realize about the timing is that while the timing is kind of the crux of everything, meaning, if the timing's not right, it's not going to work, right? Even if they want it to be the right timing. But also, with that being said, you have to realize that there might be never the right timing for some people, meaning, they've been wanting to do this forever and their life is at a level of busy that's really never going to change. So while it might not seem like the right timing, sometimes I'll question and be like, well, it seems like you're always busy, or it seems, correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like, your life's been, operating at this high-paced level forever now. So when would be the right timing, I'm wondering, right? But either way, now I've got to understand, how serious are they about working with someone like myself? Based on what you understand, based on what you've seen or heard so far, what value might you see in that? Is that something you genuinely want to learn more about? If we were to have a complimentary session where we could get an opportunity where I could actually start coaching you, or I could actually start mentoring you, right? And we were to spend the hour together, and we would actually start talking about this and, help you create some solutions, create your first few action steps to take forward, gain some clarity on this. Not only to do that, but then understand how the value of how we could work together. What would they be like for you? Is that something you'd be interested in? And if they go, oh my God, yes. Well, tell me more about why. Qualify them a little bit more. I'm not saying you have to go there every time. I'm taking it a little bit further now so you can really start to understand is I want to make sure I know that why this person really would value that. So tell me why. What would be valuable about that for you? It's like, oh my God, I need someone that I can talk to. I need someone outside of. I've heard this before. I need someone outside of my circle. I need someone. I try and talk to my my wife or my whatever, or people at work, and I don't know what to talk about it with those people. Right? That's the value of a coach, right? It's someone outside their circle. It's objective. We're non-judgmental. It's like we're not immersed in the crap and we're not in the hole with them, if you will, right? So there's a huge value in that. And so as this conversation goes, and you ask those people, see what they say. I've found that when you ask those questions, if people are really interested and they're motivated for it, obviously people express themselves differently. Not everyone's super animated and over the top, et cetera, and like, oh my God, this will be the greatest thing ever. I mean, so they might just give a very flat answer in the sense of like, no, yeah, I would. That it seems like it would be really valuable, or yeah, I think I need something like that, right? So, but even something like that, I mean, there's this. It's a favorable energy. You can tell there's an authentic like curiosity, even, right? There's a curiosity to it, But if you're asking those questions and there's just a distance, or there's just a general like. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe, or like, yeah, I suppose it would be good. It's more of a casual approach. It's a casual answer. It's just like, sure, what the heck? They're not saying that per se, but that's what you're getting. Again, you've got to override your just enthusiasm for having a potential client, or thinking, oh my God, this person could hire me. Oh my God, I could coach somebody. With just, okay, well, this person might not be there with me. They might have the need from what I can see. The timing might be great for them. And they sound like they're interested, but I don't know. Maybe it doesn't feel like they are. It's okay to make them prove it. You don't have to say, well, prove it to me, right? But essentially, that's what I'm asking them to do. I'm saying, well, tell me more about that. Well, if it'd be so valuable for you, what value do you see in that? And if we were to talk a little bit more, what would you hope would come from it? What would you hope to gain from that, without knowing much about coaching so far? If you had me on your side, where we're talking on a weekly basis to gain that clarity and create that action, what might that do for you? What value might that bring into your world? How do you feel this might help with, moving forward with X, Y, and Z situation? Right? These are all questions that you can start to ask. And can you see how what I'm going for is I'm trying to understand where this person is on that second phase, if you will, of would they consider actually working with someone like myself? And as you can see, hopefully, that even if someone doesn't really know what coaching is, as you ask these questions, see, I'm putting things in there in terms of, I'm curious, what value might you see in having someone like myself where we talk in on a weekly basis, helping you gain some clarity, helping you create some action plans. See, I'm already kind of showing them, like in some ways, the value of what we're doing, and I'm just wondering if I'm someone holding you accountable every week, you know what I mean? Creating a strategy so you're not overwhelmed, and so you can focus on this and get to the gym or have the conversations with your wife or whatever. They're already kind of planting the seed in some ways of they're starting to see like, oh wow, and how important would that be to them? How valuable would that be to them? And you can get by their reaction, and if just the fact that you're creating the space for this conversation, even if it's virtual, even if it takes a couple days, a week, or gosh, I got a client on the phone. It was for a year we did this back and forth, right? Just because of timing and situations. So there's no any amount of time period that this has to happen, and I want you to show you it's got to happen in the time period that it's supposed to happen in. That's what I want you to relax on, and that's why whenever I work with my mentoring clients, I always tell them you can't need to have someone hire you. When I spoke with someone yesterday, and I'm like, it's okay if you don't hire me, right? It's like I just want to find out where you're at and how bad you want it and how serious you're considering working with me, and let's talk about it a little bit more. Right? But if I need that person to hire me, I'm approaching it from a different perspective. And that's why you need to make sure you have your bases covered financially so that you're not coming from that place of desperation or need. On top of this passion of like, oh, I want to coach somebody and work with somebody, that's not a good situation to be in because then it's harder, it's more challenging. How about this? More challenging for you to remain just calm, collected, and listen more objectively with, if you want to say the agenda, with the agenda in mind of understanding that need and timing. And then of course, once we get that, where they're at in terms of actually starting to work with us.